The family photo was still hanging in the hallway. But the frame was empty. Just the glass. No picture. No backing. No smiling trio from that Maine vacation where I got sunburned so badly I couldn't wear a shirt for days. Just glass reflecting my face, warped and tired like it didn't recognize me either. That's how I knew she was gone. Not the missing clothes. Not the half-empty drawers or the silence in the kitchen. That empty frame, that was the goodbye. 22 years of marriage and she left me a ghost in my own house. There was no note. No forwarded address. Just a divorce petition sent through email with the subject line, "Next steps. Please don't make this harder than it has to be." And then, radio silence. You might think I'd scream. Throw things. Call her a monster. But I didn't. I read the email 5 times, boiled some pasta, and stood in the hallway staring at that stupid empty photo frame until the noodles turned to mush. Later, I found her wedding ring in the medicine cabinet behind my deodorant, tucked inside a bottle cap, like it wasn't even worth a box. But the real twist? Our daughter, Emily, my sweet, book-loving Emily, texted me the next day. "Mom told me. I'm staying with her for now. Please don't be mad." Staying with her? She didn't even ask how I was. Didn't call to say, "Dad, are you okay?" Just packed her weekend bag and walked out like it was a group project she didn't want to be part of anymore. I walked through the house for days like I was trespassing in a museum of someone else's life. The scent of her shampoo still in the bathroom. Her favorite mug still in the dishwasher. Her cat, well, our cat, still curling up beside me at night like nothing happened. Like his loyalty hadn't switched sides too. Weeks passed. Papers were filed. I signed every page without reading. I let her keep everything, the house, the car, the savings, even the lake cabin she never visited. I figured if I gave her the whole chessboard, maybe she'd stop playing. But you want to hear the most pathetic part? I still made coffee for 2 every morning. Poured hers into the floral mug with the chipped handle. Left it on the counter. Watched it go cold. Until this morning. This morning something changed. This morning I got a call I never expected. Not from her. From her lawyer. And guess what? Now she's panicking. I let it ring 5 times before answering, not because I was busy, I wasn't, but because I didn't recognize the number. I assumed it was a telemarketer or maybe another reminder from the bank about the auto payment bouncing on the joint account I no longer had access to. But something in my gut told me to pick up. The voice on the other end was polished, professional, and painfully familiar, her lawyer. The same one whose name was stamped on the divorce papers I signed like a ghost signing away a haunted house. He wasn't calling to harass or threaten. No. He was calling to discuss a possible revision to the asset agreement. His words, not mine. At first, I thought it was a mistake. A wrong number or some technicality. I laughed. Actually laughed, the kind of tired, joyless laugh you give when nothing in the world surprises you anymore. But it wasn't a mistake. He asked me if I'd be willing to revisit the property distribution due to some recent developments. I asked flatly, is she broke? Silence. Then a soft, well-rehearsed reply, financial strain was mentioned, yes. Apparently, her landscaping prince isn't quite the mogul he presented himself to be. His business ran into operational difficulties, and by difficulties, I mean lawsuits, unpaid taxes, and I kid you not, a lien on the exact car she proudly drove away in. The one she demanded in the divorce because it was newer and safer. The lawyer tried to sound diplomatic, but I heard the desperation under his tone. Jolene wanted to talk. Not through email. Not through the courts. A real meeting. In person. At a cafe. Her suggestion. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no either. I just hung up and stared at the phone. For years, I couldn't even get her to listen when I mentioned fixing the attic insulation. Now she wants my time? It hit me then she thought I'd still be the same guy. The predictable doormat. The dependable beige husband who folds at the first sign of confrontation. Maybe she imagined I'd be flattered. Maybe she thought I missed her. Maybe she hoped I'd still be making coffee for 2. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I was angry, although I was, but because something unexpected had taken root in my chest. Not revenge. Not hope. Something colder. Cleaner. I got up the next morning and did something I hadn't done in months. I opened my laptop, logged into my old cloud storage, and clicked on a folder marked J. That's right, the folder I never deleted. I told myself it was for legal reasons, that it might be useful someday. Inside were recordings. Screenshots. Backup messages. Not because I'd planned to use them, but because somewhere deep down I had stopped trusting her a long time ago. And now, for the first time, I was looking at everything not with pain, but with clarity. One message stood out. A voice memo she'd accidentally sent me a year ago. She'd meant it for someone else. I remember listening to it once, heart racing, and then shoving it out of my mind. But this time I played it all the way through. I'm not staying married to Lawrence forever, her voice whispered, hushed, breathless, and smug. He's not a real man. He's just comfort. A placeholder. Once Brent gets the loan, we're gone. That was the plan. Only now Brent had no loan, no landscaping empire, and no fallback. And I, the placeholder, still had a few pieces left on the chessboard. She just didn't know it yet. That's when I made my decision. I'd meet her. But not for closure. Not for reconciliation. I was going to give her exactly what she asked for. And nothing she expected. She chose a bakery cafe downtown. Of course she did. Jolene always liked places that made her feel important, not too fancy, not too casual. Just expensive enough for the waitress to call you ma'am and the menu to have avocado toast with 5 adjectives. I almost didn't go. I told myself I didn't owe her anything and I didn't want to see that look in her eyes, the one that used to see through me like glass. But I went. Not to make peace. Not to reopen wounds. I went because I needed to see it for myself, the crumbling foundation beneath her polished shoes. When I walked in, she was already there. Hair curled just enough to suggest effort. A little overdressed for a mid-morning meetup. She wore the necklace I bought her on our 10th anniversary, the one she once said she hated. Funny how nostalgia works when comfort vanishes. She looked up and smiled like this was some casual brunch with an old friend. I sat across from her and said nothing. I just stared at her like I was trying to remember what it felt like to be loved by her and then quietly realizing I couldn't. She broke first. You look thinner, she said, reaching for her overpriced herbal tea. You look the same, I replied. My voice didn't crack. That surprised both of us. We danced around the elephant in the room for about 4 minutes. She asked about my job. I gave clipped answers. She mentioned Chloe, our daughter, like nothing had happened. I nodded but didn't say anything. Because she hadn't called me once since she left with her mom. And now I wasn't going to pretend it meant nothing. Finally, Jolene leaned forward. Her voice dropped just a little and the actress inside her came out, soft, measured, calculated concern. Lawrence. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I know I didn't handle things the best way. Everything was moving fast and I felt suffocated. And Brent, he was a mistake. I offered. Her lips pressed together. She didn't like that I said his name first. He's going through some financial stuff. Just a rough patch. I let the silence between us stretch like a wire between 2 buildings. Then I leaned in, calm and slow. Is this where you asked for the cabin back? She blinked fast. No. No, of course not. She glanced at the people around us. I've just been thinking about things. About the settlement. About us. There is no us. I said it without blinking. Her smile faltered for the first time. She looked down, picked at the edge of her napkin. I miss how steady you were, she whispered. I never felt unsafe with you. Even when I was mad at you. Even when I resented things. I still felt safe. And there it was. The truth behind her panic. Not regret. Not love. She missed being safe. She missed the guaranteed backup plan. The man who never yelled, who paid the bills, who ignored the cracks because he didn't want to rock the boat. But I wasn't that man anymore. You remember that voicemail you sent me by mistake? I asked. She froze. Her hands stiffened around her cup. She didn't answer. I listened to it again. The one where you said I was a placeholder. Her shoulders dropped a half inch. She tried to recover. That was a dumb thing to say. I was angry. I didn't mean it, But you meant it then, I interrupted. You meant it enough to tell someone else. Someone you were planning a new life with. You thought you'd level up. Trade the old model for a better one. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. And then I pulled out the envelope. Her lawyer wanted a quiet conversation. I brought an amendment. Not for assets, I didn't want the cabin. I didn't want the house. I didn't want a dime. What I wanted was simple. I'm having my last name removed from yours, I said. She stared. What? I'm filing to have you drop it. Legally. You wanted a new life, you don't get to keep a piece of mine. That's when it hit her. Not just the embarrassment of the cafe. Not the legal hassle. But the symbol of it. She thought I'd cling. She thought I'd cry. She thought I'd still be setting out coffee every morning and pretending the frame on the wall still had a family inside it. Instead, I was taking my name back. And the expression on her face as she processed that? It was the first time I saw fear in her eyes. And I have to admit, it didn't feel as good as I thought. It felt better. I didn't expect her to call. Not after months of silence. Not after she walked out of the house with her tote bag slung over her shoulder like she was just switching dorm rooms. Chloe hadn't reached out since the day Jolene left, and even then it was a half-hearted text about needing space. I gave it to her. Not because I wanted to. Because I didn't know what else to do. But 2 days after my cafe meeting with Jolene, my phone rang. It was a video call. And for some reason, that made it worse. She looked tired. Not the kind of tired that comes from too many assignments and caffeine crashes. This was something heavier. Her eyes were red. Her cheeks blotchy. She'd been crying. "Hi, Dad," she said softly. I swallowed 100 things I wanted to say. But I just asked, "Are you okay?" She blinked like she hadn't expected compassion. "I saw the petition," she said. It took me a second. Then I realized, of course. Jolene must have told her. The name removal. The final nail in the image of our family. Chloe probably saw it as vindictive. Petty. Maybe even cruel. I waited for the lecture. But instead, she said something I never expected. "Why didn't you tell me she was cheating?" I froze. That word, cheating, was something no one had used yet. Not Jolene. Not Chloe. Not even me. We'd all danced around it like cowards. Met someone. New connection. Moved on. But cheating? That was a line. That was a choice. "How did you find out?" I asked cautiously. She pulled something up on her screen, a forwarded email chain between Jolene and Brent dated months before the divorce. Apparently, Jolene had left her Gmail open on the shared tablet at Brent's place, and Chloe, for whatever reason, had seen it. She hadn't told me. Hadn't even brought it up. She told herself it wasn't her place. "I wanted to believe she was just chasing something better," Chloe said, her voice cracking. "But it wasn't a clean break. She was lying to both of us. She told me you knew. That you two had grown apart and it was mutual." I almost laughed. Mutual. As if I had been part of that decision. As if I had been invited into the demolition of my own marriage. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I should have asked you. I was angry. You always seemed so checked out. Quiet. Like you weren't fighting for her. For us." "I wasn't checked out," I said quietly. "I was holding on so hard I forgot I had a voice." She wiped at her eyes. There was a long pause before she said, "I feel like I took the wrong side." I didn't know how to answer that. I wanted to scream, "Yes, you did." I wanted to throw every lonely dinner, every missed call, every aching morning where I stared at her empty seat back in her face. But I didn't. Because for the first time, Chloe looked like the little girl who used to sneak downstairs at midnight and crawl into my lap when she had nightmares. "You don't have to pick sides," I said. "You just have to stop pretending like nothing happened." She nodded slowly, like that sentence weighed more than anything she'd heard in months. Then she said something even stranger. "She's unraveling, Dad." I tilted my head. "What do you mean?" "She barely leaves the house. She's cold all the time. Brent's not around much. She keeps talking about mistakes and how you didn't fight for her because you never loved her." That stung. Not because it was true, it wasn't, but because it was so twisted. That was always her gift, Jolene. Making her guilt sound like someone else's flaw. "She thinks she's the victim," Chloe added. But I'm starting to wonder if she ever really knew what she wanted. Neither of us said anything after that for a while. Eventually, Chloe asked if she could visit. "Just for a weekend." "I miss the quiet. The smell of your awful coffee," she said with a shaky smile. I told her I'd get the spare room ready. After we hung up, I sat in the kitchen for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't gloat. I just sat there with a strange ache in my chest, not grief, not relief. Something in between. Maybe this was the beginning of something new. But I should have known better. Because what happened that weekend? That changed everything again. She arrived just before sunset. Chloe. My daughter. She stood in the doorway like a guest who wasn't sure she belonged. She had a backpack over one shoulder, the same one I bought her freshman year, now scuffed and fraying at the seams. Her eyes darted around the living room like it was a museum exhibit she hadn't visited in years. I told her she didn't have to knock. She smiled faintly and said, "Didn't feel like my house anymore." I didn't know what to say to that. I didn't argue. I just stepped aside and let her in. We didn't do anything big that first night. No emotional deep dives, no grand apologies. We ordered cheap Chinese food and sat on opposite ends of the couch. She scrolled her phone. I watched the takeout containers sweat on the coffee table. We talked about nothing, which felt like everything. The silence was different now. Not sharp. Just careful. The next morning, she woke up early and asked if I needed help reorganizing the basement. I blinked at her. That place hadn't been touched in over a year, not since Jolene left. But Chloe was already halfway down the stairs before I could tell her no. I followed her, unsure why I was suddenly nervous. The basement was exactly how I remembered it, dim, dusty, full of half-unpacked boxes and broken things we never had time to fix. Chloe pulled open a few old containers and started sorting through blankets and holiday lights. I hovered near the workbench, pretending to look busy. Then she called out, "Hey, what's this?" Her voice was too neutral, too flat. I turned. She was holding a shoebox. Not labeled. Taped shut. It wasn't mine. She peeled the tape slowly, like she already sensed something was wrong. Inside was a stack of papers, some folded, some crumpled, and a cheap black notebook with one word scratched into the cover in all caps, plan. I hadn't seen that before. It was hidden behind old paint cans. She set it on the floor between us and opened it. We read in silence. It wasn't a journal. It wasn't even encrypted. It was a blueprint. For what, at first, I didn't understand. But then I saw the dates. The names. The timelines. It started months before Jolene left me. Pages detailing her meetings with Brent. When Chloe was in school. When I'd be at work. What days I usually forgot my lunch and came home early. There were notes on assets. Insurance. Legal websites bookmarked and printed out. One page said, underlined 3 times, wait until bonus hits. Close joint account that day. Another, if he cries, stay calm. Don't let him guilt you. He's used to you. Not in love with you. I stared at that line so long it blurred. There was even a checklist. Like a shopping list, but colder. Jewelry hidden. Brent's truck inspected. Chloe softened. Backup plan if Brent's loan fails. Chloe's face was pale. She looked like she was going to be sick. She planned it, she whispered. She didn't just fall out of love. She engineered it. I nodded. I couldn't speak. My throat felt like I'd swallowed broken glass. There was a folder under the notebook. Chloe opened it and pulled out a photo. A printed screenshot. It was from a security camera, one I didn't know we even had. It showed Jolene, standing in the garage, kissing Brent, smiling. Timestamped 8 months before she left. Chloe dropped the photo like it burned her fingers. I defended her, she whispered. I told my friends you were distant. I told them she was brave. Neither of us moved for a long time. Eventually, I took the box and put it in a plastic bin. I didn't throw it away. I didn't know why. Maybe I needed to hold onto it a little longer. Not for revenge. Just to prove to myself that I hadn't imagined it. That evening, Chloe barely spoke. She sat on the couch with a blanket wrapped around her, clutching her knees like a child. And for the first time since she came home, I saw her crack, not from stress or guilt, but from betrayal. Not just of me. Of her, too. She lied to me, Chloe said. About everything. I wanted to comfort her. To tell her it would be okay. But I didn't know if it would be. I didn't know what okay looked like anymore. The next morning, Chloe said she wanted to go see her mom. Not to argue. Not to make peace. I just need to look her in the eye, she said. I need to know if she can lie with the same face she used to tuck me in with. I let her go. But I watched from the front window as she got in her car, hands trembling on the wheel. And deep in my gut, I knew something was coming. Something bigger than I was ready for. Chloe was gone for 4 hours. I didn't text. Didn't call. I sat in the same chair by the window, staring at the driveway like I was waiting for bad weather. I wanted to pace. To clean. To distract myself. But I couldn't move. My chest buzzed with this low, sick electricity. My daughter had walked into a house where nothing made sense anymore, and I had no idea what kind of woman would greet her at the door. When she finally came back, she didn't say anything right away. She stepped inside, shut the door quietly, and stood with her back to me. I asked if she was okay. She nodded too fast, then took off her jacket and dropped it on the floor like it weighed 50 pounds. She denied everything at first, she said, turning around. Her face was pale, her eyes unfocused. I showed her the notebook. She barely looked at it. Just crossed her arms and said, "You must have planted it to poison me. Like she's the victim of some plot." I closed my eyes for a second. Of course, Jolene said that nothing was ever her fault. She was always pushed or manipulated or driven to it. Always someone else's storm, never her own weather. But then I asked her straight out, Chloe continued, "Did you ever love Dad? Or was it always about security?" Her voice trembled on that word. Security. She didn't answer right away, Chloe said. She just sat there, playing with the hem of her sleeve. And then she said, "Love is complicated. You don't always get fireworks. Sometimes you get a roof over your head." I didn't speak. Couldn't. That sentence landed somewhere in the center of my chest like a cold, heavy brick. She used you, Chloe said, barely a whisper now. She used both of us. She told me I needed to grow up and stop romanticizing relationships. That people are just stepping stones until you find the one who lets you breathe. And Brent? I asked, my throat dry. She said he was supposed to be the next step, Chloe replied. But now that his business is collapsing and the excitement is gone, she's reevaluating her decisions. I let out a bitter laugh I didn't mean to. Jolene never reevaluated. She just rewrote history until she looked like the misunderstood hero. She said she regrets nothing, Chloe added. That stung more than anything else. I think I would have preferred screaming, or tears, or denial, but that flat, clinical sentence, she regrets nothing, was worse. It was like hearing a doctor tell you the cancer was there all along, just hiding under the skin, smiling while it grew. But Chloe wasn't finished. She also said one more thing, she whispered. She said she might fight to undo the name change filing. That it's unnecessary punishment. That you're trying to erase her. I stared at her. She still thinks this is about control? Chloe looked at me, eyes wide. Dad, she's unraveling. Like, actually unraveling. She kept changing her story. She said Brent manipulated her, then said she was always planning to leave you anyway, and then said she stayed longer than she wanted because of me. She even accused me of ganging up on her when I said she owed you honesty. The floor felt like it shifted beneath my feet. She's lost, Dad, Chloe said, sitting down slowly. But she's not lost like someone who wants to be found. She's lost like someone who burned the map on purpose. We sat in silence for a long time after that. Then Chloe stood up and walked over to the hallway. She reached up and took the empty picture frame off the wall. The one that used to hold the last family photo, the one I never replaced. She turned it over and pulled out something wedged in the back. A folded piece of paper I didn't know was there. Did you put this here? She asked. I shook my head. She unfolded it carefully. It was a handwritten letter, dated a few weeks before the divorce. It wasn't to me. It was to Brent. He doesn't suspect anything. It's almost funny. He still brings me tea every night and asks about my day. I pretend to care. It's exhausting. Once the papers are in, I'll make sure the transition is smooth. Chloe is on my side. That's all that matters. He'll fade out quietly. He always does. Chloe read it aloud in pieces. Her voice cracked halfway through. She didn't finish the last line. I read it myself. I almost feel bad. But he let himself become boring. She handed me the paper and walked upstairs without another word. I sat there alone, staring at the paper that used to be pressed against glass, hidden behind years of denial. And I finally let myself cry. Not for Jolene. Not even for Chloe. I cried for the man I used to be. For every time I made tea and thought it meant something. For every quiet dinner I mistook for peace. For every whisper I didn't challenge. Every truth I buried because it was easier than rocking the boat. But the boat was gone now. And for the first time I wasn't afraid of the waves. I didn't respond to Jolene's first 2 voicemails, or her texts, or the email with the subject line clarification and closure. I let them sit there, unread and festering like milk left out on the counter. She didn't want closure. She wanted control. And part of me was almost impressed at how she was spinning everything as if she was the one being wronged. But it wasn't until she called my work number that I finally answered. She said she needed 5 minutes face to face. That there were things I didn't understand. That Chloe was confused. That I was confused. I wasn't. But I said yes anyway. Not for her. For me. I chose the park near our old library. A place where she once made fun of me for getting misty-eyed reading to toddlers during the holiday story hour. She'd laughed then, said I was too soft, that I felt too much for people who didn't matter. Back then I laughed too. Now I understood it was a warning sign I ignored. She was already there when I arrived. Dressed in beige again, the same shade of safety she claimed to hate. Her hair pulled back. Not flawless, not disheveled. Just calculated. Like everything else with her. She stood as I approached, offered a tight, hesitant smile like she thought I might slap her with words. But I didn't want to yell. I wasn't there for drama. I was there to turn the final page and close the damn book. Thanks for coming, she said quickly, nervously. I know this has all been. I'll stop you there, I said. My voice was flat, calm, but I saw her stiffen. She wasn't used to that tone from me. I'm not here to rehash everything. I'm not here to hear your justifications. I'm here to listen to what you think you still need to say, and then I'll decide if it matters. Her mouth opened slightly. That caught her off guard. For once, she wasn't steering the conversation. She sat back down on the bench and motioned for me to join her. I stayed standing. I messed up, she started. But not the way you think. I gave her nothing. I thought Brent would be more. I thought he'd elevate me. Give me something different than you ever could. Not just money, tension, passion. All those things you stopped giving me. I tilted my head. You mean the things you stopped recognizing the moment they weren't grand gestures? Her expression tightened. I thought I was escaping a cage, she admitted, eyes darting away. But I built the cage myself. And now, I'm stuck inside with someone who's not even capable of building a door. I didn't flinch. So you want to come back? That was the trap. And she walked into it. She hesitated. That tiny pause told me everything. If I gave her the chance, she'd wedge her way back into my life like smoke under a door. She didn't want love. She wanted refuge. I want to fix things with Chloe, and I want us to stop acting like enemies. We shared 2 decades. You burned the bridge, I cut in. You don't get to walk back and ask me to rebuild it with handshakes and nostalgia. Her eyes flashed with something sharp. She wasn't used to losing. I gave you the best years of my life, she snapped suddenly, standing now. No, I said softly. You leased them, and the contract ended when you sold your integrity for short-term validation. She stared at me, mouth slightly open, as if searching for the version of me she used to manipulate, the one who would apologize just to keep the peace. He wasn't here anymore. I'm not trying to hurt you, she said, but this name change. The way you're painting me to Chloe. I didn't paint anything, I replied. You did that when you handed her the brush. She took a step toward me. Do you really think I deserve to be cut off? After everything. I think you made 100 small choices that led to this exact moment, I said. And now you want me to pretend it was all one big misunderstanding. But it wasn't. It was math. Cold. Clean. Calculated. Like the notebook. Her face changed then. Like a mask slipping. The defensive strength drained out, replaced with something that looked like fear. But it wasn't fear of losing me. It was fear of losing the safety I represented. You don't get to rewrite the ending, I said as I turned to leave. It's already been published. I walked away before she could say another word. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Later that night, Chloe and I sat in the backyard, wrapped in blankets, watching the stars. She didn't ask how the meeting went. She didn't need to. I think she saw it in my eyes. Do you feel lighter? She asked after a long pause. I thought about it. No, I said honestly. But I finally feel done. And for now, that was enough. It was Chloe's idea. We were in the living room again, quiet after dinner. The house felt warmer somehow, like it had exhaled something stale it had been holding for too long. She glanced up at the blank space on the wall where the frame used to hang and said, I think we should put something back there. I shook my head without thinking. That thing's cursed. She smiled, small but real. Then maybe we hang a new one. First, I didn't get it. But she stood, walked over to her bag, and pulled out a photo. One I hadn't seen before. It was from a week ago. Just the 2 of us in the backyard, wrapped in mismatched blankets. Chloe mid-laugh and me holding a steaming mug of cocoa, looking awkward but actually smiling. You didn't even know I took it, she said. But it's the first time in years you didn't look lost. I stared at it. It wasn't perfect. The lighting was off. The background was cluttered with rakes and garden hoses. But it was real. More real than anything I'd framed before. That night we rehung the frame. No ceremony. No big words. Just a picture of a man and his daughter, figuring things out. The next few weeks were slow and quiet. Chloe stayed longer than planned. She helped me repaint the kitchen, cooked awful pasta that somehow still tasted like home, and on rainy days we watched old movies she used to roll her eyes at. We didn't talk about her mother much. We didn't need to. One morning, she told me she was ready to go back to school. I offered to drive her, expecting her to say no, but she said yes. So we packed her bags, loaded the car, and made the 3-hour drive with the windows down and terrible 90s music blaring. Before she got out, she hugged me, tighter than she had in years, and whispered, "You're stronger than you think, Dad. You just forgot for a while." I didn't cry until I was halfway home. That weekend, I finally cleaned out the basement. I boxed up Jolene's leftover things. I donated the good stuff, tossed the rest. I opened windows, let in light. I found that old shoebox again, the one with the letters and timelines, and instead of burying it in a drawer like before, I shredded it page by page. It didn't deserve to exist anymore. That chapter was over. The silence in the house is different now. Not haunting, not hollow, just quiet, peaceful. Sometimes I still make 2 cups of coffee. Old habits die hard. But now, one of them sits across from me. Sometimes Chloe when she visits, sometimes a neighbor who drops by, and sometimes just me, looking out the window, remembering how far I've come. Jolene never followed up on the name petition. Maybe she knew it was over. Or maybe, deep down, she finally realized she didn't deserve to carry what she tried so hard to escape. Either way, I let it go. One morning, I passed by the photo frame in the hall. I stopped and really looked at it. 2 people, still healing, still unsure, but laughing. And I realized something I hadn't felt in a long time. I was home.